Okay, let's bring to order this regular Newton Falls City Council meeting on March 16th. Anybody that is in attendance, if you could turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate, and if we could stand for the Pledge Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have somebody for prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scotty Rowe of the Church of the Nazarene remotely give us the prayer. Pastor Rowe?
Hello?
Yes, Pastor Rowe, you're at the council meeting. Could you now lead the prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you and I pray that you would give wisdom and understanding and discernment to all involved in this evening's council meeting, Lord. I pray that you would have them handle the city's business with the highest integrity and honor, Lord. And I pray that you will unite them in purpose, Lord, Father, and that your will would be done in Newton Falls as it is in heaven, Lord. And I pray this in your holy name, in Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are we ready for the roll call?
Okay. Waddell? Here. Braymeyer? Here. Ariette?
Here.
Savet? Here. Alberini?
Here.
Okay, that's everybody. Who do we have for a special presentation?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we don't have any, I'm going to ask if you could ask for a motion to suspend the rules, because it's something I want to make sure we do for the public tonight.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to suspend.
Okay. Mr.
Braymeyer?
Smith?
Yes. Ariette?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Alberini?
Yes.
Waddell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mr. Mayor, and members of the public, as you know, we are in a very difficult time right now, and the city of Newton Falls is assembling all the assets that we have at our disposal in order to make sure that you are safe, and we are working in conjunction with the federal government, the county government, the state government, and all the various authorities that have jurisdiction over these matters. Assembled at this table this evening are some individuals that are going to give you an update on some of the things that are happening here locally. And what you have assembled here this evening is the task force. We call it the Newton Falls Coronavirus Task Force. And I'm going to begin with a brief presentation by our Superintendent of Schools, Paul Woodard. Mr. Woodard?
Hi, thank you. I wanted to, first of all, thank everyone that was responsible for helping out the last 2 days with putting food together for some of our needy families. A lot of time and effort went into yesterday and today. I think we got out close to 500 boxes of food to people around Newton Falls, and just a lot of coming together and blessing to see what had happened with the people coming together there. The school's going to be shut down per the governor's orders for 3 weeks, which would take us till April 6th for right now, and then I know they're going to be reassessing that at that time. We do have some online assignments for students that they can get online on our website, and a lot of people came in today and picked them up for a hard copy. We won't have people in the schools for the next 3 weeks, with the exception of just administration here and there for certain things. When it comes to us being able to do the food delivery or handouts, I had put on the website and I put out on our all call, we would try to do that for the next 3 Mondays. However, we are running into problems getting the food. They're rationing food at places, and we're having a hard time getting things. So I will put out an all call to the community, and we will put stuff on the website later in the week and let people know what our plans are. If we would happen to go into a quarantine situation for a few weeks, obviously we would not be doing anything during that time period, but I will do my best to keep everyone updated on what's going on. All spring sports, all extracurricular activities, the buildings for any usage by the public is shut down until after April 6th at this point. If you have any questions, you can email me, and I will get back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard. The next speaker as part of the task force is the fire chief of the Newton Falls Joint Fire District, and Doug Theobald, our chief. Can you tell us what's going on with the fire department?
Well, I'm sure most of us have seen that the information coming out changes literally hour by hour on the number of cases. I can tell you that as of earlier this afternoon, there were 50 confirmed cases in Ohio, and 14 of those 50 cases are hospitalized. And as of right this afternoon, there were no deaths in Ohio as of this reporting. I think the most important thing we need to bring out to our citizens, our listeners, our viewers, is that this is a manageable situation as long as we provide and follow the instructions that are given out by the CDC and the Ohio Department of Health and things like that. First and foremost, if you're sick, stay home. If you need hospitalization, there are criteria that you will have to answer prior to being hospitalized. If any questions, certainly contact 911 and they would refer you to the proper organizational transport. This disease is spread by aerosol or sneezing, coughing type things that is transmitted then to hands. So clearly you've seen the signs and information. Wash your hands. Wash your hands at least with warm soapy water. I know that there has been a run on the bacterial supplies and things like that. Regular soap and water and warm water will disinfect your hands. Keep your hands out of your face, your eyes, your mouth. And the same thing. If you have the ability to disinfect your house, do so safely. We have posted on our webpage some dangers of mixing household chemicals to try to produce products that you think will disinfect. Regular household bleaches and things like that, reduced in a very limited quantity, will disinfect surfaces, and that's all that's necessary. Again, the numbers have been changed by the governor from down to the amount of people, but the rule of thumb is to, at this period of time while this is going on, do not have hand-to-hand contact and things of that nature. That will keep you from spreading it. It is really known that the disease spreads by aerosol. So again, it's not shown that it'll be a proven factor that you can get it off of tables and chairs and things like that after someone else, but due caution is noted to be there. One of the things that there has been a severe run on is masks and things like that. You only need to wear a mask if you are a known carrier of some type of a flu or something like that that you sneeze. Putting on a mask to protect you will not work, and most of the masks that you pick up at local hardware stores and things like that are not approved aerosol protectants. They won't protect you from that type of things. Again, we have seen the governor and other agencies work on closing schools and bars and restaurants and things like that where mass groups of people can gather, and certainly that's one of the things that we want to do. The governor and the state and the federal government are working on travel restrictions, and so I advise you, if you're not going to need to go out of the country, then you're probably not going to be exposed to any further things of that nature. Again, if you are ill, stay home. Avoid contact with people who are sick. If you know someone in your family that is sick, stay away from them, obviously, of that nature. One of the best things you can do to prevent this is eat well and get rest so that you maintain your immune system at the highest level possible. Wash your hands often. And regular soap and water will suffice. Dry your hands by air or with a paper towel that you can dispose of. Please don't use other linens or things like that that possibly could carry or spread the disease. Cover your mouth, certainly one of the things we've all learned as young people. To cover your mouth if you sneeze or cough with a tissue if possible. Again, avoid contacting your face, your mouth, or your eyes and that. Again, we suggest you clean doorknobs, door handles, steering wheels, cell phones, TV remotes, things like that. Those are one of the common ways that you can spread the viruses, and that being again, some of the doctors and hospitals are requiring you to call in and talk to them prior to entering the hospitals, or I believe you're seeing more and more regular doctors cancel regular visits. Again, so this is not a great risk if you just maintain the regular health care type things.
All right, thank you, Chief. Next, we're going to turn to our police chief, Gene Fixler. Chief, what's happening in the Police Department's reaction to this thing.
Well, I do want to say that we're unknown, but we're following the guidelines and advice of both the National Center for Disease Control and the Ohio Department of Health. We are in abeyance with the Governor DeWine's mandate and enforcement of the prohibition of sit-down restaurants and bars. We're going to encourage everyone to patronize our carry-out and delivery local establishments, but as the police department, we're pretty well mandated to ensure that everybody stays closed as they should and follows the guidelines. We are encouraging our officers to wash your hands. We can't say that enough. Wash your hands. Hand washing is so important. We will respond as necessary to calls. You call, we're going to be there. If it's a non-essential type thing that you really don't need a policeman at your house, please call 330-675-2730. That's the county dispatch number, and request for an officer to call you back, and then we can make the determination at that time if we're going to come to your house or not. If you're ill in any way, please have the courtesy to notify the officer, and I'm going to urge this too for the fire department personnel. Let the dispatcher know when you call in if you need a rescue squad for something. Let them know what's really going on. Don't candy coat it. We need to know, because these are men and women of the police and fire department. They want to go home safely also. So if you're not feeling good, say so. Tell us what it's about. All of our police operations will be status quo as usual. We're going to do nothing different out there. We're going to be out there protecting you, patrolling as we do. I do want to say we have mutual aid agreements with other communities, where if there's any manpower shortages on their end or on our end, you may see us going to other communities. You may see other communities police departments coming to Newton Falls. This is what we do with mutual aid, so we want to make sure that everybody is protected throughout the Mahoning Valley. And we'll continue to work as part of this task force with the fire department, with the courts, with the schools, to do everything we can to ensure tranquility in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Vigorito was going to make a presentation this evening to update you with reference to what is going on with the courts. He had a medical emergency and could not be here this evening, but he wanted me to convey to you the fact that he is looking at procedures that he can use to ameliorate the impact of the coronavirus on the court operations. He is having probation activities take place by telephone, and he is implementing various other procedures in order to reduce the amount of traffic that he has in his courtroom. So he sends his very most serious best wishes for the health of everybody, and he wants you to know he's working very hard to protect everybody who has any contact with the court in any fashion whatsoever. Finally, I'll talk to you a little bit about what's going on here at City Hall. Utilities, as some of you know from our earlier post, must be paid in a way that is not in person. We have a drop box at our utility office, but we want to eliminate public traffic. Traffic and people congregating is the sort of thing that is our enemy right now. We want to keep separation. Some of you may notice that in this council chambers tonight. We are adhering to the governor's 6 feet of separation. So please make your payments by drop-off, or if you want to, there is a phone line, 872-2000, and you call there and you can pay by phone. We are waiving the telephone fees, or go to our website and you can pay online. We are waiving the online payment fees. In addition to that, we are waiving any late fees until this matter passes, and there will be no shutoffs of any utilities during this very critical period of time. Last but certainly not least, during the month of March consumption only, and in residential areas only, we are putting in place a 30% rate decrease for electric and water only. 30% rate decrease for electric and water only. And in addition to that, that applies to individuals that are residents of the township. Another second point is that our zoning office is closed. If you have a zoning issue, dial 330-872-3157. We will get to you, but we want to cut back on people sharing airspace. Third thing that's probably most relevant to what you're seeing right now is our council meetings are going forward, but we're going to have our public participate by remotely communicating with us, so we don't have them gathering right here in this room because of, again, people sharing airspace. We want to be transparent. We are one of the few communities in Ohio that broadcasts the meeting live, streaming, so you can actually be here from your living room. Now, we've asked the Attorney General about the Sunshine Law and open meeting laws, and they have indicated to us it is perfectly appropriate under these unusual circumstances to have members of the public participate in the meeting by being there remotely. And so you'll see a number of comments made by the public tonight, which you'll hear through the audio technology that we have set up. Members of the media are exempted from that. We want full transparency, and that's the reason why any media group that wants to be here physically, at their own risk certainly, but they're certainly are going to be amended. Now, how that's going to apply in the future, my intention is to talk with the mayor, the fire chief, the other members of this task force about how we go forward now, because the president issued this afternoon a new directive of the Presidential Task Force on Coronavirus that indicates that groups of 10 or more are ones that the president would like us not to convene. And we probably have more than 10 at this meeting right now. So please stay tuned and we'll stay in touch with you. One other thing I want to mention, that is that we did have this building sprayed over the weekend. It was on Sunday, and a chemical called Maquat was used. It's a very effective chemical, but nothing is universally applicable to protecting us. And we hope that you understand that we want to discourage people from coming to the building, but you're not prohibited from coming to the building. There was some information that was on social media today that basically said, because I said I had the building sprayed and because I want to discourage people from coming in, that they were absolutely barred and prohibited from coming to this building. The essential employees of Newton Falls will go to work every day. The government wheels in Newton Falls are not coming to a halt. Now, what that basically means is use your own judgment, but we're going to do everything else we can in the meantime to keep everybody healthy. I want to mention something else about the food supply chain. This is very important to all of our residents. I had a conference today with representatives of the IGA in Newton Falls and representatives from the Shop and Save. These are our two major grocery sources here in Newton Falls. And they've indicated to me that the food supply chain is intact. They do not expect it to get interrupted. They do have shortages of toilet paper and of disinfectant products. That's not unexpected. But if there was a message that I got today from the operators of our two grocery food supply chains here in Newton Falls, it was this: they don't have an interruption in their supplies, so please buy what you need under normal circumstances. Don't buy everything out. They're getting their deliveries on a regular basis, just as before, and there's no reason for you to jeopardize the health and safety of other citizens who cannot get foodstuffs by virtue of the fact that we're buying out every single can of soup and things of that nature. Up until this point, they've put some limits of supply on some things that can be purchased, but please exercise sound judgment, kindness, and compassion toward your other residents of Newton Falls. Another thing I want to mention is that I had a conference today with the hotel operators here in Newton Falls, and you should be aware of the fact that they are staying open, but by virtue of the new things taking place, they will not be serving these breakfast bars that they do tend to brag about as a big feature of going to a hotel in Newton Falls. However, the hotels are staying open. They are doing breakfast in the nature of something called the grab and go. Not sure what that is, but it probably involves just a little snack and then you move on. But the hotels are staying open. And last but not least, we have posted on our website a list of all the restaurants in Newton Falls with their phone numbers. Please patronize them. Our restaurant activity in Newton Falls is one of our major economic engines. And by virtue of the fact that people cannot go to the restaurant and sit down and eat, that means the drive-through and carry-out business, as the police chief mentioned a moment ago, is core to their being able to survive. So the message is this: give mom a break and go out and get that food that way. It would really be helpful. We're going to continue to talk to all of our business operators here in town to see what else that it is that we can do. And before we go into regular session, Mr. Mayor, as it relates to operation of this meeting, with the four of us here, I'd like to see if any of the members of council have questions for us before I let the superintendent and the fire chief go. So I'll turn the meeting over to you to see if there are questions or if anyone wants to raise their hand. Councilman Alberini?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Chief Theobald, everything you said is pretty much spot on.
Councilman Alberini, you moved away from the microphone before, so I'm going to ask you to kind of speak up. I would expect you to. Okay.
I'm going to hold this. So much for that. Sorry about that.
That's it, just leave it there. Talk right there and you're fine.
Chief Theobald, everything that you're saying is pretty much spot on. The information that you passed is what we're seeing. Being a safety gear supplier, we have access to all that information. I would encourage the citizens at home to follow either the CDC or the Cleveland Clinic and don't watch all this hysteria that's on TV. We actually do business with a major manufacturer of sanitizer, and his first recommendation is to use soap and hot water and only use sanitizer if you don't have soap and hot water in hand. So thank you so much, all four of you. I appreciate the information. I think we have right now what is called an infodemic instead of a pandemic. Not that I take this thing any less serious, but I think we have to be, as citizens, giant filters and try to filter out what's truth and what's not truth. So thank you very much.
Other questions?
Yes. Chief, could you give us that phone number again?
Phone number to call is 330-675-2730. Now, those familiar with our dispatch, our old phone number, 872-5757, may still call that number and just press 1. You'll hear a little recording and press 1, and that'll give you the same dispatcher. And by all means, if you have an emergency, use 911. If it's a genuine emergency, please call 911. But otherwise, just to talk to an officer, get some advice, or to make a non-essential report, 330-675-2730. Or if you have the old number up in your memory, it's 872-5757, and just press 1 and it'll give you the dispatcher also. You're very welcome.
Mr. Woodard, I just want to say thank you for offering the schools a collection site for the food. Friday and Saturday, my wife and I spent about 8 hours driving around to different stores to try to collect food that was on that list. And that was a challenge, it really was. And I was over there Sunday when we were unloading it and stacking it and sorting it. And this guy come in and it was full. And I asked him, I says, where did you find that? Because I didn't find it. He said he'd spent 11 hours driving between Youngstown, Canton, Cleveland, and back down and stopping at every store he could find because he had all kinds of different name labels and stuff. But that's what, there's people in this community that have spent a lot of time going around because there's just, some of the stuff isn't here. You can't get it. And some stores are limiting due to 2 packages of spaghetti or 4 cans of sauce or something. But a lot of people have spent a lot of time to do that. And I thank you for, making that a nice central collection area because they used all those tables.
Yeah, I was amazed when I came in today and saw all the food that was in there. And from 7 o'clock on, we were boxing and sorting, and then we went out to 4 or 5 different locations in the community, and we did another all-call, and I think we were pretty close to 500 boxes of food and drink for what we could find. And again, it might be a challenge to be able to do that the next Monday and the following Monday, like I put on the website. If there's a way we can modify it, we'll do it. If it's a quarantine situation, obviously we won't do it, but we're going to try to do what we can to help, and a lot of people were involved in that, and I do appreciate it. I thank everybody that was involved in that.
Mr. Barnett.
The hand sanitizer is non-existent. I think everybody knows that. And if I'm wrong, maybe somebody can help me. I know we don't have a doctor here or a health specialist, but I had heard that gel aloe alcohol, at least 90-some percent, and an essential oil, and you can make your own. Is that true?
That's correct.
Thank you. They may have some luck finding that because, and not just for the homeowners, but even some of the, like, I was up at the pizza shop and they only about had a half a bottle left. So, all right.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, if not, well, do we have a motion to reinstate the regular?
You guys can take off. Thanks, Paul.
Mr. Wood, would you stay for a minute? Up there?
I'll step here.
Yeah, stay there, I got something for you.
Bariak.
Yes.
Samet.
Yes.
Alberini.
Yes.
Waddell.
Yes.
Braymire.
Yes.
Well, when it's my turn, I'll do that.
Okay. Public comments, and again, this is limited to 3 minutes and limited to items identified on the agenda.
Mr. Kraut, you indicated you want to say something this time.
Yeah, you go ahead if you'd like to do the phone calls first.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to get a hold of Katie Carl, who was asked to participate in this fashion.
Hello?
Yeah, Ms. Carl, you are now live in front of the City Council for comments for 3 minutes on topics that are on the agenda. Please proceed.
Thank you. Okay, I wanted to address the ordinance 2020-10 about the AMI system that you, the contract that you wanted to go into with Gardner Company. The questions I have for council are, is this something that's going to add on additional cost to us, the residents of the city, or a surcharge? Will that be added on also? And that's a concern, a major concern, if there would be any kind of extra surcharge, like there is for the wastewater, because that's an extra charge we already have. I did talk to one of the council members about it, and he explained to me that it is a win-win situation for us to have this system. It would basically pay for itself, in which case that's great for us, but not if it's going to slam us with extra charges. And he explained how very accurate it is with readings, etc., and the usages. We have very accurate readings for our meter readings, etc. But the other question is, too, do you have to have a smartphone? A lot of people may not have that. So if we don't have a smartphone, or what do we do in that case? Can you explain those things to us or for us? Thank you.
Okay. Next individual on the phone.
Yes. Next, we actually, for this portion, we have no other call-ins, but I understand Mr. Crump is here on behalf of NFX, I think.
Absolutely. Can I take the podium?
Yeah, there's a microphone there, so you should.
Got it, excellent. I won't even touch anything. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I had to kind of fight and claw my way to get into the meeting. The doors were locked, and I was not allowed, I was not permitted to come into the meeting. And it wasn't until I pressed that I basically told him I was on live camera, which I was, that I wanted to come into the meeting, that there was no law stating that I couldn't come to the meeting. And Mr. Lynch, you addressed...
This is not on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yeah, you have to go according to what is on the agenda.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to point out that the article that you talked about, it's on Channel 21, it said that we were barred from coming to the meeting, so there's an actual news article. I do want to address a couple of the items on the agenda tonight, and then I'll speak at the second part as well. The part for number 1 and number 2 for the agenda, as far as the ordinances, as far as the agenda and documentation. I'm a support of anything to get the agenda out sooner. I tried to get a copy of the agenda myself so I could request to make a presentation tonight. I was refused that request for a presentation because I didn't request what was on the agenda. Now, the agenda, as we all know, doesn't come out until Saturday, noon Saturday, prior to a meeting on the next Monday. Now, to make a request to be on that agenda, or to speak in front of council, to make a special request, you have to speak on what's on the agenda. So that's actually impossible to do. As Mr. Lynch and I actually spoke on the phone, he confirmed that that's actually impossible to do. There's no way a member of the public can request to speak on something that's on the agenda because you have no idea of knowing what's on the agenda by the deadline you're supposed to submit your request. So that's a huge, huge issue. If there's a way to work around that, Mr. Lynch said I should propose that to council, and I told Mr. Lynch that he's been sponsoring legislation and stuff to council, so he could either do it or council could do it. I don't care who does it. Somebody can do it. Somebody can file legislation to get this passed so that people can speak. I think that's a huge thing. And I will speak at the second public comments as well. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else?
No, there's nobody else is requesting.
All right, reports, and I'll start off. First off, I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Lynch had said about carry out for our businesses, that our businesses always support the community, and I would ask that the community doesn't stop supporting the businesses. If you have your favorite restaurant that you sit down in, that you try to find a way to carry out or do whatever you can there. Secondly, I wanted to thank Mr. Woodard and the school for really stepping up to the plate and being servants in your community and caring for the students and the citizen. That I've always said that there's some people that do what they do for a living or a paycheck or whatever, and there's others that do it because they're called to do it. And I think individuals there is really, the cream is rising to the top there. Thirdly, I met today with Mr. Stempert, Mrs. Grunder, my wife, and Mr. Lynch to finalize some items for our welcome baskets. And a lot of individuals would say, well, is that really an important thing to talk about right now? And I believe it's probably more important than ever before that we continue to move forward, to press on, and to show our greatness as a community. Individuals that are new to the community need to see what we're about. We're real close to having all the details done. There's a lot more to it than you would think than just throwing something in a basket. I would say we'll be done next couple of weeks, but we'll be waiting until probably the end of April, third week of April, to start delivering after some of the, we know a little bit more about our condition and how that is. And with that condition, the coronavirus, bring up something there that Newton Falls is dealing with, just like any other community. But I wanted to make mention that through the years, Newton Falls has dealt with a lot of situations. We've dealt with tornadoes, we've dealt with fires, we've been hungry, we've been satisfied, we've had our ups and downs, and we've made it through every time. This is a community that I'm proud of. I looked at the school system and some of the pictures people posted on Facebook, and I said, boy, I would rather call no place home but Newton Falls. And it's the same way when the tough, is there, we come together, and I appreciate that. But the thing about it is we need to bind together. Yeah, we got to cross our T's. We got individuals here that have given us professional advice, and we need to follow that. We need to make sure that we are being responsible, that we're doing the right things. I'd rather look back. I heard somebody say this on the news the other day. I'd rather look back and say, boy, we overdid it a little bit. I'd rather overdo it than underdo it, and that's a fact. But the fact of the matter is, I've heard the same thing over and over and over again from a lot of individuals in the community over the last few days. If you don't mind, I'd like to repeat what they've said. I'll repeat it to you from a few lines here from my survival manual, if you don't mind. It says, I will say to the Lord, my refuge, my fortress, my God in whom I trust, for it is he who delivers you from the snares of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you may seek refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a bulwark. You will not be afraid of the terror by night or the arrow that flies by day. I bring this up Because, yeah, we are going to be responsible, but we're not going to be fearful. We are not going to be in a snare or a trap or in bondage to terror in such a way that we cause ourselves anxiety. You know, I'm going to tell you what, right now, God is not caught off guard. He's not saying, oh no, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with this corona?
Mayor, can we get on with the meeting pretty quick here?
I'm on with
I
the
had
meeting.
prayer time twice now.
Please finish your,
You live your way, I'll live
Thank
my
you.
way.
I mean, can we just get it?
please finish your.
I'm going to tell you what. We have binded together and we've been through things for years. And this too shall pass. This will end. And I'm going to tell you what, if we stay together, we're going to look back and we're going to be stronger than ever before. And that's the point that I wanted to make, that, yeah, there's a lot of details that we need to follow through in, but fear is not one of them. Council members, who do we want to start with? Mr. Bariak, Mrs. Braymeyer,
I have nothing to report.
Ms. Braymeyer?
Yes, I do. I just want to remind everybody that March 31st is the Park and Recs meeting, and we're going to discuss the dog park there, but it may be canceled now. So I'm just reminding you of it, and a call before you try and come up to make sure we're going to be here. That's it.
I have a few things. I'll do this one first, and then Mr. Woodard could leave if he wants. At the last meeting, I mentioned that I was part of a group that went over to the school and read to the first graders. And like I said, it was a ton of fun. I really had a lot of fun. But what was really touching was this past week, I got an envelope. And in that envelope was thank you cards from all the students. And they colored them, and they wrote on the inside, they wrote little sayings, little thank yous, every one of them are handwritten. I mean, it was really touching. There's a teacher over there that is actually teaching kids to do the right thing, which is to say thank you for what you did. And as I was walking out, you walk down the hall, the kids had gone somewhere and come back, and they'd stop and hug you. And I just was so impressed with this. And what I want to do is I'm going to keep one of these. But I'd like to give the rest of these back to you. Pardon my hands. And maybe you could show them at your next meeting. Maybe you could have them put them back up in the hall where the other kids can see what these kids did and how they thank us for coming over and doing the things we did. Because I was real touched with that. That was a great thing for those kids and the teacher to have them to do. So thank you so much, and make sure you express that to the teacher and the kids.
All right.
Let's see. I attended a meeting with the OML on the coronas, but the stuff that they talked about, that is about a week old now, so it's kind of really, like you said, it is changing really fast. Also at the last meeting, I talked about the gentleman from Lordstown Motors and talking to us and wanting to come here, and the gentleman's name is Chris Kurzich. He is the Director of Government Affairs and Corporate Affairs, and him and Mr. Raja, who is the Ohio Sales Director, has planned a luncheon with the mayor and Mr. Alberini, myself, and Mr. Lynch, but I assume that's going to be moved back since that date. But he does want to come to Newton Falls. He wants to have a meeting with the leadership here and the economic development team, because he feels that we are close and that we're all part of the group out there, and what happens out there does affect Newton Falls. So I was really excited about that. I attended a fiber meeting with Mr. Lynch and Mr. Axiotis. Kathy King was there, and all the people from the fiber group that we were looking at. What an exciting day that was. We drove around town, showed the people what we have to offer, all of the things, the areas where we could start and where we could finish. And I think that that's something that we should do. But I did want to go back to the Lordstown Motors. Is maybe council should consider ordering an Endurance sometime when this thing gets moving. That's their electric vehicle out there. Maybe council could look into the budget or put into the budget an electric vehicle from out there and support the Lordstown Motors as it's coming through. That might be a good thing to do. Mr. Alberini and I were invited to go over with one of the county engineers in Portage County and have dinner with them. We have a great relationship with Portage County, so we did that. Last week, I went to Ohio University for the last classes at the university, sitting 6 feet apart, shaking, washing your hands every so often. And I finished my real estate course. So I have finished all of my economic development classes for the Certified Economic Development Planner. Because of the way the classes go, I will be able to work on my thesis and my capstone starting in September, and I should be able to take my state certification earlier in 2021. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think it's going to be great for the community to have that kind of knowledge and that available to us. That's just something else we don't have to hire out. One of our partners in Team NEO, because they were going to have their annual meeting, and they are not. They've kind of shut down for that. But one of the things that they want to make sure that we understand here is because we really rely on Team NEO to help us with some of the things we're trying to do to bring business in. But they want to make sure that they stay on their recruitment. They want to make sure their expansion and retention of jobs, and anything they can do to help our communities continue to bring jobs to that, they want to do that. Folk Engineering has completed an estimate for installing a 6-inch water line on Harding Avenue. So hopefully this year or next year, we can get a sewer line going down Harding Avenue to clear up some of those issues. But I think the bigger part of it is Folk is now working on and preparing to conclude the water issues out in the east, the 3rd Ward, and out in Milton Boulevard area. We have a lot of water that's laying there for different reasons. We have some people at the end of Ashland Court that want to buy tile and put it in. The nursing home, the country club wants to buy tile and have us put that in. So we're working on that, where all that water is laying. So we've got some things that are really going on with the water. We're going to try to resolve some of those issues here as quickly as possible. Also, when they do the paving this year, I'm going to say the east end of Mayhill up toward the school, where people go up and turn around, that mud pit up there, we will be paving that this year. They're going to put a turnaround in there. They're going to pave that. So I'm excited about seeing that happen, because a lot of the neighbors complain about the mud and that gets tracked out onto the road. And also the other partner that we have with the Regional Chamber has suspended, and they're going to reschedule their annual meeting, which is really important to bring all the people together and explain what their goals are for the year. So that's going to be rescheduled also.
All right. Mr. Savet?
Just one item, and I imagine Dave will bring this up at some point in the future, but I know I have received 2 pieces of mail from the U.S. Census Bureau to do your census. That is vitally important to the city of Newton Falls, to Trimble County, and to the state of Ohio, because that determines a lot of our state and federal grants and how much we receive. So while we are being sequestered with the coronavirus, it is very easy to go online and do it right on your iPhone.
Mr. Alberini?
That's close enough, actually. That's pretty.
That's good. I don't want to do. Mr. Waddell had said, but we were humbled, and we were exceptionally excited about being invited out to the Lordstown Motors event. I guess to the point where only a select few group of people are able to take this tour because the information is proprietary. But that just speaks volumes of the networking that's taken place here with Newton Falls that we've established over the last couple of years. So that was pretty cool. Jay, how do you spell his last name? Jim, the sale? James Rafi, Raji, spent considerable time with myself and Lyle. We talked about a number of things, including potential housing developments here in Newton Falls because of the proximity to the Lordstown plant, and I think that took their interest very much so. The second thing is that I noticed Mr. Crops here and Mr. Layshock. Someone sent me a snippet online, and it was actually a good snippet finally about people interested in seeing what we have done over the last couple of years as far as economic development. I have no issue showing the public, including Mr. Crop and Mr. Layshock, some of the plans that have been laid out by David DeCristofaro, some of the work we've done with Guy Cavallella from the Chamber of Commerce, and some of those people that we've networked with. So at some point in time in the future, I would like to have an evening on council where we show everybody what's going on. So the word transparency is no longer a swear word anymore here in Newton Falls. So thank you very much.
And finance director is not here. Her family's still.
She's here with the family emergency,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Law director.
Thank you, sir. With regard to the first two items under new business, I just want to give you, again, I understand council can do whatever they want. I encourage them to do what they want to make go in place for. But I want to explain real quickly how the process is kind of.
Mr. Chairman, can I run for just a minute? I want to make sure our audio is okay. If we can determine whether or not he's being picked up audio-wise?
Joe, can you move up there now?
Yeah.
We're good.
Up to the table now that Mr. Theobald left, so we can all hear you, please. Thank you. It's tough hearing you now. Thank you.
On the first two items that we have under new business, council can make any changes they want, but I want to explain how the procedure has been designed by the state in order to give everybody a fair opportunity to act and get citizen input on these various ordinances. We have by charter 2 readings. The purpose of getting the deadline of noon Saturday is so that all council members get all the information at the same time. The citizenry can get that day at the first meeting. The reason we have 2 readings of our ordinances by the Ohio law is because that gives the citizenry 14 days to prepare to explain their opinion at the next meeting before the second reading. Also, at the end of a second reading, there's a 30-day time period before the law goes into effect because there's an opportunity for the citizenry to take some sort of court legal action should they wish. The whole idea of getting everybody there, getting the information at the first meeting for the citizen, it's the dog chasing the tail. So at the first particular delivery, everybody gets the information at council because council's the ones that makes the decisions as the representatives of the citizens. At the second reading, the citizens have an opportunity after 14 days to get the information, to call their council members should they wish, to get further information, and make a decision on whether they're for or against the ordinance, whether they want to speak or not speak, and the procedure goes from there. So by changing the dates, all you're doing is moving the dates. You're not changing any ability for everybody to get on the first agenda. It doesn't change anybody. It doesn't change anything. All you do is kind of bump up the dates back. Now, as the staff can get to it at the same time, but what's going to happen is if we can't get the information verified in the proper form, make sure some of the stuff's boilerplate. It's the same stuff we always do. But there are occasions where council members have asked for something where I have to do legal research. And that legal research cannot be guaranteed in 24 hours. I mean, I have to do some research. Based upon the research, we may not be able to get something you want on the agenda because you've cut off a couple of days for us to prepare for it. So again, the system is in place. The fact whether or not the citizens get it at the first meeting so they can talk, it's not really that important because they have, by the state law and our charter, the opportunity to have 14 days to make their opinions known after the 14 days, a public comment at the podium, and then should they even believe that the council is not properly acting, they have 30 days before that ordinance goes into effect where they can take legal action. I just want to kind of lay that out. If there's any questions while the ordinance is up, I'm willing to answer questions at that time also. That's all I have in my report. I'm available for any additional questions on any other topic.
Thank you.
I have some questions for you tonight.
Yes, sir.
I have first of all, I don't know where to start. There's just so much that's going on. But I would like to go back to this, first of all, with a 30% reduction in the rates. Where is that given to the city manager in our charter? I could not find anywhere that he has the right to sole discretion. If you could find it, I'd just like to be corrected. I know the mayor, under emergency powers, has when the National Guard comes in, but where does it give the city manager? I just want to know.
I'm going to tell you
And why, and why, then I'm going to ask, go ahead.
Let me answer, or you can ask another question, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, as it stands now, it's not a rate change. It's a modification of 1 month. So the charter only gives council the orders to make decisions with a rate change. So it's kind of an administrative decision. For example, some people come in and before they go to utility review board, they have a minor instance and always has been the city manager the ability to make those changes. It's an administrative decision. I'm not saying the administrative decision he's making is right or wrong. I'm just saying that in these administrative decisions, he has the right to make that decision. And if you're unhappy with the decision he's made as this administrative decision, you have methodology in order to modify it. You can put it on a motion and pass and say he's not allowed to do it. If you're looking for something in the charter that says the city manager can cut rates, it's not in there.
I understand that, and I remember years. See, I've been here quite a long time, Mr. Fritz, and even to get a 25% reduction for the Christmas, we used to give one every Christmas for that month. It went to council for their approval.
I'm not sure it was necessary. There's many things that Mr.
Well, that's
Lynch,
why I'm asking, I just wanted to know what the reasoning is, that's all.
you'd have to talk to Mr. Lynch about the specifics. There are many things that were done before where even Mr. Lynch does on a regular basis. There are things that they're not required to be by ordinances. And there's some resolutions he has that are not required to be in front of council. But in the year and a half I've worked with him, he goes out of his way to make sure as much information is presented as council as possible. So just because he has put it in front of council before, doesn't mean it's required. Part of my job is to make sure something like that that is required to be by ordinance, is by ordinance. And I will tell you, I can't say for every time he has an idea, but we communicate on a regular basis, and we verify whether it has to be by ordinance or resolution, and whether he even has to bring it to council. He verifies that almost all the time with me. I can't say all the time because I'm not him, but I'm going to tell you, we have active communication about what form it comes to the floor.
Also, are you done, Mr. Fritz?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask you anything. Also, I think the public, the transparency issue is the most critical thing, is because there's been a lot of times up here we've passed stuff under emergency legislation. Do you agree or not agree, sir? I know,
I disagree.
What's that?
I disagree.
Well, and here's something about the agenda I want the people to know. First of all, I'll tell you what, I'll get into it with the city manager. Could I come back to the law director? Because this is going to be a little bit of a couple things. Would that be all right tonight?
It's up
We
to
have
the
to
chair.
suspend council rules.
It's up to the chair, sir.
I haven't addressed, Mr. Mayor.
What was that?
So, Mr. Fritz, then basically what Mr. Variak's saying is that if we wanted to nullify that 30% decrease for the citizens, he would have to sponsor a motion in doing so, correct?
That would be an effective method, and if he had sufficient amount of votes, could undo whatever Mr. Lynch had done.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Alberini, I'd like to say that I'm not against the 30% for the residents. What about the commercial users and the businesses? They're starving right now. Why aren't we giving them something too? When they had the bridge down, they suffered hard. And now we're giving the resident, which is a great gesture. It's not that I'm anti-citizen. Look, I want the people to get by. We're a community. But why are we picking and choosing?
Well, so
I was going to ask.
That's an administrative question, not a legal question. So I would have to
Well, I'm
defer
gonna
to the
go
city
to-
manager.
Okay, the other thing is, then, before I go to that, that way I won't have to bring that up again, Mr. Lynch can answer one. I have an opinion here from Mr. Yost. This is, I'm going to show the citizens. And the main thing about it, I understand we're trying to be very transparent tonight. But I want to give you what he said. He says, a final word of unsolicited, non-legal advice. Please note that the procedures outlined, which is we're trying to stream it and everything like that, in this letter is meant to address the unique situation that all Ohio is dealing with. Now is not the time to rely on this guidance in order to enact a legislation unrelated to the instant emergency that is better reserved for the normal operations of government, etc., to pass a new tax or enact a new regulatory scheme. Now, from what I understand, I'm willing even tonight to withdraw my motion, even though because I don't feel that can hold for a couple weeks. How do you feel about that, Mr. Fritz?
I don't have a legal opinion on that at all. I will tell you that many of the things that we've done to make changes this week, I pretty much handle in two ways. We have to be, whatever changes we have, such as prohibiting the number of people being in this meeting, has to be reasonable. We should be doing something in good faith. because there's no case law that tells us what we're supposed to do. There's no written law that tells us what we're supposed to do. So if we act in good faith and we do something reasonable in our modification, I believe it'll hold up against any court action.
Okay, in
And that's
other words,
been my mantra
you're
always.
saying if somebody sues us for sunshine laws, you're confident we can win?
Yes, with everything we've done so far,
All right,
I believe we've been
I just wanted to-
reasonable.
I'm sorry,
and
sir,
we're
I'm
acting
not
in
trying
good
to
faith.
upset you, I'm just
No.
trying. Thank you.
Director. Okay, Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With everything else going on with the coronavirus, as I mentioned, the wheels of government have continued to turn, and we did have a meeting with Dave Baclar from Thomas Folk. The water situation, especially in Ward 3, is egregious, and we've been working with the Ward 3 Councilman Lyle Waddell on particular issues. There are several in Ward 3, all up and down Milton, and some of the side streets off of Milton, surface water problems, and throughout the rest of the city, basement water problems. And Mr. Baclar, at the 3rd Ward Councilman's behest, has been working hard. We're expecting that report to come out shortly. In addition to that, Eastgate has been changing their criteria for the scoring of projects under the Ohio Public Works Commission system, and that's one of the reasons why Newton Falls is positioned to get 3 projects from the Ohio Public Works Commission granted this year for 2020. That has never happened in the history of Newton Falls before. As a matter of fact, they all seem to be Councilman Bariak's ward that is the beneficiary of those 3 projects. But the reason I'm bringing that up in particular is when they changed the rules recently, one of the rule changes was to give additional points to communities that have the engineering work and design done ahead of time. In other words, you recall this when we were getting a federal stimulus. Things had to be shovel ready. And we are scoring these points because of the hard work of Folk and Associates. And administratively, we've been making sure that it's not just a general concept for achievement of the project, but that we have the design work done. It's like anything else. If you're going to have somebody do a project, you want someone who's ready for the project. They don't want any money disappearing because the project wasn't ready. Very encouraged by that. And last but not least, with reference to the fiber activity, we did have meetings. Council approved the consultant that was coming in to help us evaluate what to do. And again, we are determined to find a way to provide fiber to our citizens without putting it on the burden of the taxpayers. And then one last footnote, which I meant to mention before and didn't. Katie Carl brought up the question about whether the meters were going to end up costing us more money. The answer is no, not more money, because we anticipate recovering more money as a result of the new meters, so that the burden on the taxpayer not only is none, but puts us in a better position in terms of protecting the rates in Newton Falls. In other words, rates not going up because of these new meters or what they'll be able to achieve. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks in the opening city manager's report.
Mr. Alberini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lynch, I had a couple questions over in the West Broad Street area.
Yes.
2 in particular. I know we talked about this before. The plans for possibly paving West River Road that runs along the river down there.
Yes.
Is that still on for 2020 possibly?
It is possibly, and by the way, I'm not trying to be cute in giving you that answer. What happens is we submit our request to the county and they do our bidding for us. But that essentially establishes a rate for us.
Understand.
And we want to make sure that the final determination of funds lets us go as far down our list as possible. And I think it's quite likely that we'll be able to go far enough down the list to provide for that street.
Second address, sir. 6th Street, when do you anticipate them coming out and finishing up 6th Street and possibly restoring the park there?
Yeah, we've had some conversation with the folks from our engineering department, and we're hoping that sometime that will happen either later this year or beginning of next year. Right now, it's on the cusp.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Waddell.
Just one comment on the meters that, I think you mentioned it before, but I just want to mention again. The new meters that we're getting are extremely accurate. and they're going to make a very, very accurate total of what you're using. Some people might see a decrease in their water usage, their charges, because the new meters are that good, but there are people out there who may see a little bit of an increase because their meters aren't registering properly now. When we get these new meters, they're extremely accurate. So there may be some fluctuation in those meters, the first month or so until they get everything straightened around, but there obviously won't be an increase to the customer because of the new meters. Secondly, in the meetings that we've had in the last couple of weeks with Mike Novotny and Harry Schaefer and Bill George on the projects that we're on, it's just nice to see that the quality of the leadership in the ranks that we have here, that you can bring these guys in, and they're obviously experts in their field. That's why they're in that position. But the knowledge that they have and the way that they've worked with these projects, especially with the Washington Street project, when they brought the schematics out and we're looking at those, and a lot of that's a little bit Greek if you're not an engineer and looking at that. But, they understand it and they know what's going on, and it's just so heartening. It's great to hear that you can ask these guys the questions and they can give you the answers, and they do really, really well with them. Especially when you know the subject, and when Brian Axiotis was sitting here, we were talking about the fiber, I was amazed at how much Bill George really knows about that and the process. So I think we've got really good, talented people here, and moving forward, I think it's going to be an asset as we try to bring ourselves into the little bit of the future that the rest of the county is not doing yet. I think we have a real leg up with these guys.
Be any other discussion with the city manager?
Yeah, I have questions for the city manager. Thank you. Mr. Litch, I want to know why the water superintendent, who I asked to be here tonight, isn't here, and why you couldn't get a hold of Mr. Novotny on the sewer. I'd asked those two people to be here because I have questions. I understand the finance director isn't here because she had a pressing problem. We're about to spend $4.1 million here, and I'd like to have some questions answered. And what I would say to you tonight, sir, is this. You started last September in a newsletter and said, I will pursue some automatic meters. What was that? Radio-controlled meters. Up until a week, what was it in the newsletter, sir? Do you remember what you said to the people? Do you remember what you said to the people, Mr. Lynch?
Can you be more specific, Councilman?
You said you would be pursuing updating our electric meters.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I didn't know anything about this until a week ago Friday. Now, I understand you run the city, but we never had a work session. I didn't know anything was going on. Now, I've been thrown a contract here, and I read it over. But I asked if anybody else out of the consortium or wherever we were supposed to go to, if you could let me know so I could make. This is all I got from you. Bring the camera on in here. I didn't even get a phone number, where they're from, Timbuktu or Baruvo, Georgia, or wherever. I don't even know, so I could call these people or even find out if they're for real. Now, and it seems to me that this council's on an as need to know basis, sir. I'd like to know a little bit more about, because before I go ahead and take $4.1 million on something that I feel that I'm not really going to support tonight, because until I get some answers from the finance director, that I have some very serious questions. I have some serious questions. What I will say to the people, and if I'm wrong, you correct me. And even if the meters, the new water meters, most of our meters are tested, from what I understand, and they're 3% off. But even if we get all these new water meters, because of water breaks, old pipes and things like that, and I have the figures you gave me, sir, there was only one year that we were under 10%. So do you expect us to go under the 10%? How can we do that? How can we get under 10% loss because of breaks? People we sell to out in Braceville, other things. None of this has been explained to me. And that's why I'm saying I'd like to be kept up to date with the rest of this council on what's going on. Not to tell you how to do your job, but dropping these bombs on us to spend $4.1 million and telling me what you said last week was, I can't guarantee you that it'll drop the rates, but if you don't pass it, I know we can't. Show me. That's all I want to do. Show me, not anticipated, show me something in black and white, and let everybody else, let me know who else could have been, and what we should have been doing all along is having a work session or two on this. I'm not denying you anything, sir. I'm just saying, this is a lot of money, a lot of money. And one other question I want, while you're writing all these down, why is the reason we're not forgiving the sewer rate, too? Is that because we're struggling in the sewer right now and we're barely holding water? I mean, I want to know. I mean, why wouldn't we give them the sewer, too? And I appreciate, something else I want to say. I appreciate you doing this for my ward. But Mr. Alberini, you just got $80,000 over there to your ward. It was besides a grant to run the pipe down there through the thing. So you've been taken care of too.
Point of order.
I mean, it's not like I'm the only one
Mr.
getting
Bariak,
anything.
I'm counsel at large. Zach Savette is Ward 1 counsel.
Oh, I'm sorry, Zach. I mean,
Okay?
it's not,
So,
no, I mean.
we are doing our
well,
job as we are supposed to, sir.
All right, well, thank you, and I stand corrected. Mr. Savette, I just know that your ward and everybody's supposed to get, look, it seems like, I just don't want to be, my ward to be the stepchild. You know, we've been beat like a stepchild for so long. I'm glad that we're starting to get something over there. I appreciate it. But I want things for all of Newton Falls. But I don't want to be like I'm just getting it all for myself. I'm not. Thank you.
City manager.
Well, he didn't answer what I asked him.
May I be recognized, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I'm going to try to turn that dissertation into 5 questions, okay?
Oh, whatever.
All right. The first one is, why isn't Mike Novotny and Chuck Lane here? On Saturday evening, you requested that those 2 superintendents appear at a Monday evening meeting. I indicated to you at that time that they would be here at the meeting if they did not have previous engagements that they couldn't break away from. So I communicated with both of them. They indicated they could not be here Monday night. If they had had more time, that they would have done so. Now, you have their numbers, and as you know, when I started as city manager, I initiated the concept of you being able to talk directly to the superintendent. So please do give them a call. The other thing you asked about was the information related to what was presented by Mark Havens, who's a representative from Gardner. You asked for their studies from Gardner in particular. Other members of council did not ask for it, so I had delivered to your home 50 to 60 pages of a detailed study from Gardner with reference to the performance activities of the testing of Gardner on the water meters and the electric meters in Newton Falls. You have that information, 50 to 60. So when you hold up one piece of paper and say, catch it, everybody, there's only one piece of paper, you've been provided more information than anybody. And please let me finish. Please let me finish. All I'm trying to indicate is that we are bending over backwards to respond to your information requests. But the reason is you're entitled to it. You're a councilman. You're going to have to make a final decision on this. We want you to have as much information as possible. But I want you to take a look at those studies in detail because they speak for themselves, will demonstrate to you the testing that they've done. Another question you asked was, can we handle the under 10%? I don't understand that question, so I can't answer it. But I will ask Mr. Havens if he understands it so that he has an opportunity to respond to it. The last question was related to the sewer rate, and I did want to make sure I responded to that as well. We are doing a temporary decrease for 1 month on residential only in electric and water. We're doing that by virtue of the fact that our operational costs are such that for a 1 month period, temporarily, we can afford to do that. We cannot afford to do that for a 1 month basis because the margins are very thin in the wastewater treatment plant. And so the margins are not such that we can afford to do that. And that's the reason we only do water and electric.
Mr. Chairman, I can say something. Mr. Lynch, I appreciate the information there too. I did speak with Bill George at our workshop with the Gardner folks, and the Gardner folks did a great explanation. Bill George said one thing to one of the questions I asked him. A lot of the meters that we have are at the end of their life cycle. So at some point in time, we're going to have to make a move. Soon on those meters, yep. Correct? Okay,
yep.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Lynch, one more thing. We'll get into that if we go that far. But I want it's not for me to know. I want the superintendents, and look, I have no right, I do know a little bit about the charter, just about this much. I have no right to tell them what to do or when to do it. All I can do is ask you to ask them. Now, I can ask them questions, but I can't tell them to come to this meeting.
No, of course.
Oh, no, well, that's, that.
How about you call them up and talk to them?
I have
Okay.
talked to the people,
Please.
I try to talk to everybody.
Please feel free to talk to Chuck Lang or to Jeff or to Mike Novotny or to Bill George. All of them are very, very interested in talking to you
understand that.
so you understand what their position is. It's just that if you call on a Saturday night and say, we want you there on a Monday night, I have to respect their own prerogatives in terms of their personal schedule.
Well, I also got the financial report, and you'll have to explain something to me. I have a detailed I asked for public records.
Sure.
And I just don't understand, are we millions? I wanted the finance director tonight, and that's why I'm not gonna go for any legislation until I get answers to the questions. Are we now millions of dollars in debt as it is, from what I read?
Well, first of all, you have debt being serviced by wastewater right now, and we have some other debt. Let me answer the question sort of an upside-down way, which will clarify things a little bit better. The city's debt structure is such that we have an additional $15 million of inside debt availability. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is we have very, very conservatively approached our debt structure here in Newton Falls. That's the reason why, when I talked about fiber, I talked about doing that through revenue bonds so that it doesn't affect the city's debt, doesn't create general debt for the city. And we are in a very, very conservative position. In addition to that, the funds for which we accumulate dollars to be an offset for rainy day are at very, very high levels right now, as you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million in the Treasury Investment Board right now. So our debt structure is conservative right now. Our reserve funds are exorbitant right now. We should be careful. And one of the reasons is the coronavirus is something that ultimately may have more of a long-term effect on us, and that's the reason to be conservative.
Mr. Lynch, did any of the other companies do a survey on what they thought they could save us, or what this would save us at all?
Not to my knowledge. No.
Well, then,
not to my knowledge.
Excuse me, I don't want to be facetious, but don't you think that if I'm selling a Volvo, I'm going to tell you the Volvo is the best, or I'm going to tell you what you want to hear? That's what we're asking to do tonight. I'm asking we asked the company that's that they're going to give us the contract, and we asked them to do the study.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what I mean? I'd like to see a contract. Well, we're going to get into that. I'm sorry. We'll get into that if we go that far. I'm sorry.
Any other discussion with the city manager before we move on to any changes to tonight's agenda? No. All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda? No. All right. Approval of previous minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the previous minutes from March 2nd through 20th.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Savett.
Yes.
Alberini.
Yes.
Waddell.
Yes.
Raymeyer.
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes.
Okay. Was that for the March 2nd meeting? Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the March 11th, 2020 special meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Alberini. Waddell. Raymeyer.
Yes.
Bariak.
What is it? What is the motion on, sir?
Special meeting minutes.
The March 11th special meeting minutes.
March 11th, John.
On buying the church?
No, the March 11th, we're approving the minutes for the March 11th special meeting.
Oh, the special meeting, I'm sorry. Yes.
Savett.
Yes.
Okay, public hearings.
On ordinance 2020-09, an ordinance repealing ordinance 2020-06 and authorizing a new contract with the New Falls First Congregational Church.
Yes, Katie Crowell is indicated and Mr. Crop is indicated as well. It'll take me a while to get back there, so if you take Mr. Crop first, I'd appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Before 7 Elizabeth Street, thank you for letting me address the council again. As far as 2020-09 is concerned and the purchase of the church, as I stated before and previously, and I think many other people, with the referendum petition that we put together, because of the fact that the purchase of the church was kind of pushed through as an emergency, or attempted to be pushed through as an emergency, was the biggest issue that I had at the time. But I also wanted to address the fact that I think even more so now, with all the events and everything that's kind of taken place over the last several weeks, money and expenditures and purchasing things as far as need and want are even more heightened than they have ever been, I think. And making extraneous purchases, whether it be a $250,000 building, whether it be $4 million on electrical, whatever, I think that the village really needs to consider what they do and how they decide to move forward with this. If you guys decide to move forward with buying this building, and also at the beginning of the meeting, just kind of in reference to this ordinance and the church itself. You guys earlier, I think it's fantastic. I know Mr. Woodard was here, and to everybody that volunteered for the food and everything at the school and organizing that, participating in that, I think that was awesome that you guys all kind of had a hand in that. But I don't think anybody acknowledged the fact that there was actually an organization that was actually reached out to that actually organized that and put that together. Ford Ministries actually organized that and put that together. And I'll clarify. I'll get to that point. I don't think council. I'd like council or someone to acknowledge the fact that and this is my belief, that the reason that the council decided to try to purchase this church was because there was another organization that put a bid in on that church, and it was another organization that's been doing a lot of good here in this town, from what I can understand and from what I've seen. And I don't think anybody's ever addressed that. And maybe somebody could address why that was done as an emergency, and if that was the reason why it was done as an emergency, I'd like to know. I think the public would like to know as well. If that be the case, I'd like you guys to state that, and I look forward to addressing you guys at the last public comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, it's Katie Crowell, Mr. Chairman.
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Carl, you have the floor regarding the Congregational Church purchase.
Yes, I do. And I would like to ask that any and all costs moving forward with this, if the council passes it tonight, be transparent in any plans that you have for renovations of the building. Also, be carefully considered before you make them for the building and remodeling, any more money spent. And I know the date of the contract that needs to be made is the 16th. So if council does pass it this evening, it will be changed and amended to an emergency. So please consider moving forward with this. Is it in the best interest of the city? And will you please make sure that you're doing everything to be, again, transparent so that everybody can see what it is you're going to be doing with this? Thank you very much. That's all I have to say. Bye.
Okay, is that it?
Nothing else?
Okay, go ahead and close the public hearings then.
Move on to the next one.
Move on to unfinished business.
Ordinance 2020-09, an ordinance repealing ordinance 2020-06, and authorizing a new contract with the Newton Falls First Congregational Church.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, I want to just respond to Brian's suggestion there. And I feel confident in saying this. None of us here on council, or as far as the city goes, was aware or privy to any information of anybody else purchasing or trying to purchase that property. We let the realtors take care and do their due diligence. Mm-hmm. We totally stay out of it regardless of what is on social media or what is said. We have nothing to do with that whatsoever. So if somebody else came in and tried to purchase that church, we would know nothing about it.
I would like to add to that also, if there's one individual in this community that respects Forward Ministry, it's myself. Many of the individuals that are in that ministry attended the church that I pastored for 12 years. I would never be a part of anything to harm them. Matter of fact, I commend them and am here to help them in any way possible. and I agree with Mr. Alberini, there was no knowledge at the time, and that was due to the seller itself, why the emergency situation took place. And again, I bring up, I thank the forward ministry, and there was never nothing ill towards them. Any other discussion, Mr. Bariak?
I'd just like to say about it is that I didn't negotiate the contract. There's things that you can and can't say in executive session, but there's things that the city manager has answered, which is his explanation of why it went the way it did. Now, I stand by my decision, and I'll vote for it again tonight, that it was a good deal. Yes, I'm tired of emergency legislation myself, Mr. Crop. I'm tired of it. But I'm not going to back off. I'm elected by the people to do what I feel is right for the community. And I don't know who's all bidding on it. We're not allowed to know that. I didn't know anybody bid on that. I didn't know anybody else bid. I know we bid on it, and we were the successful bidders. I've heard all kind of, I had a guy come up to me, and I don't want to take the floor all over, grabbed me by the arm in McDonald's and said, you know, our church bid on that. I said, I didn't know that, you know what I mean? There's only so much I can control. Now, if there's a problem, maybe Mr. Lynch will have to get the word out a little bit better, or somehow, or something, when maybe the whole deal is there's more communication with the public. I think that's what the public wants.
Mr. Alberini?
I want to add one more comment to that about the emergency legislation part. In any business or corporation, there's contracts that you have certain dates that have to be executed and fulfilled. I believe Mr. Lynch explained that we had to execute and fulfill that contract in that certain date. It just so happened it had to be on the day of council meeting, and I forget what the date was on there, sir, help me.
February 3, the original.
February 3. So we were on their timeline. We weren't on our timeline. So I want to clarify that we don't want to be in the habit of passing emergency legislation. In this case, it was kind of an exotic situation where we had to either move or get off the pot, just to be quite frank.
I think the point I'd like to make, and not to be derogatory, we passed fat daddies or fat pappies for a guy to open up on Route 5 out there at the piece of property we purchased on the corner of 5 and 534. It was emergency legislation. We want to hurry up and get that $100 a month. We presented him the contract, which I couldn't understand. That's putting the horse in front of the cart. He said he didn't want no part of it, but it was emergency. That's why I'm saying that sometimes we use this emergency legislation too much. And I think that's, I voted, the only time I ever voted on emergency legislation was when we tore the building down. The basement was falling in. I don't know, you said airplanes were going to get hit by the water tower. They never got hit in 80 years, but that's good enough. I'll buy that. But you remember saying that the airplanes were going to, well, it's okay. But anyhow, I voted on that emergency. I voted on that emergency because the building was falling down and it was a safety hazard for young children. I'm thinking the people, yeah, go ahead.
Please.
Quaddell?
Yes.
Braymeyer?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Alberini?
Yes.
Passes. Okay, under new business.
I'm going to pull that motion tonight because it's not critical to the operation of this city. We can revisit it later. It's, from what I understand from the Attorney General Yost, we shouldn't be doing anything really that isn't just for the survival of this community. So I'll pull that tonight. I'll pull that tonight.
Mr. Fritz, do we need a motion or a second or anything for him to pull that since he presented? Okay.
He's the one that brought it forth, he can take it off before.
All right, just making sure.
Yes, sir.
All right. So just move on to the next ordinance. Okay, ordinance 2020-08.
An ordinance amending codified ordinance chapter 121, section 12102, officers and staff B, council staff, in reference to delivery of council agenda and documentation.
Okay, do we have a motion?
No. Also, we're not going to fail for lack of having them second.
Excuse me?
I want to withdraw that motion too. Sorry.
Mr. Waddell?
Once you put the legislation on the floor, it has to be acted upon,
Okay.
unless...
I missed that. I thought I was withdrawing both motions.
Unless council acts to remove it, but once you put it to the floor, it has to be acted on.
Put on the floor, so where do we go from there? Do we
It needs
need
to be voted on or acted on. It can-
We need a,
Phil, we're not going to second. Was there a second on it?
Oh, I would second, because it's already been, I was waiting to see what they were going to do. 'cause
Oh.
I was reading it, I did.
Oh, you
I
did?
didn't hear that. Okay.
I didn't hear it first for a second.
okay,
I'm assuming Mr. Bryant was first since he was the sponsor.
I was,
okay.
yeah, I wanted to withdraw both motions. I thought that's what I was doing right now.
Well, at this stage, Mr. Waddell is correct, since we have a first and a second.
Yeah, what had taken place is we removed the first one, the second one was read, so it's actually on the table right now, so you just vote on it. We do have a second, correct? Mr. Waddell, okay. All right.
Before there's a vote, I'll have a conversation about this, if I may.
Sure.
If we vote on this one, if you pass this one, we don't get anything done, because it's actually, you're asking us to deliver before we get the stuff. So,
What was that, sir?
since the first motion was pulled by you, if we pass the ordinance, you will have the ordinance ordering us to present the information before you're required to get it to us. So I'm suggesting, since it has to be on the floor, that if council wants to pass it, they're going to wait 12 or 13 days before stuff shows up on the agenda. Or if they vote no on it, we can revisit it at the next meeting.
Can I make a motion to table it?
You can if you get a second.
Second.
Now, discussion on, and a vote on the tabling it.
I meant to withdraw both pieces of legislation tonight. If the council wants to vote to table this, I'll be in full agreement with it.
Yeah, it's slipped between the cracks, so we'll just vote to see if we can table it. If it passes, then we're tabling it. So, roll call.
Braymire.
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes.
Savet.
Yes.
Alberini. Waddell.
Yes.
Okay, motion tabled. Next ordinance, then?
Ordinance 2020-10. An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into and execute a contract for an AMI implementation project with Gardner Service Company, LLC.
So moved.
Okay, discussion.
I feel, I have the floor, I feel tonight, because the finance director's not here, and there are some questions I want to hear from the finance director, not from anybody else, about the state. Look, now's not the time, we don't even know what, we may need some emergency money, even, I don't know how we'd work that around. But I don't know from day to day what's going with the revenues, or we might have one of the greatest, hopefully not, recessions going. I don't think the time now is to start adding $257,000 almost of debt to this city a year until we, 256, what is it? How much?
That's about right.
In other words, I don't believe another thing, I don't believe we can spend ourselves out of debt. You know, on something that's on anticipation. I'm not going to be for this tonight until we get some solid, rock-solid answers from the fire, which I had prepared, and I was told she wasn't coming, and from the water superintendent, and from the sewer superintendent. I think that's only fair to the public.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, not to be repetitive, but I do recall us saying that these meters are at the end of their life cycle. So an expenditure, whether we want to do it or not, has to be made. And I'm aware, I did some research on the Gardner Company, that I believe are located in Solon, Ohio, is that correct?
Yes.
Great company, great reputation. I have the full faith and confidence in Mark's presentation. for the citizens of Newton Falls, and sometimes we've got to make tough decisions. So I think it's an investment up front that'll pay it forward down for the community downstream here in the future. I think what's a 15-year window, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
It'll be revenue positive.
Discussion? Mr. Lynch?
I'll yield to the Ridge Road
Mr.
Council.
Savet.
Councilman Bariak brought up that I think you may have mentioned, but I just want
Yes.
to make sure we mentioned again that they were a successful bidder for the State of Ohio purchasing program, which the State of Ohio does all the bidding for. So they're the most qualified as determined by the State of Ohio. So I'm familiar with that program and, you know, how that is done, so I'm confident in that they are the best and most qualified for the AMI program.
Mr. Bariak?
To me, the math just, as a simple thing, the math just doesn't add up, and I want to go a point towards Mr. Alberini. At 20 years, at the anticipated revenue that we're supposed to receive, and I want to ask a question about it, the contract. Mr. Fritz, I want to get to you real quick, but at the anticipated revenue we'll receive, it'll take 20 years for us to break even. Somehow the figures aren't adding up. I wish I had a blackboard here tonight. And I would try to just, maybe I'm wrong, explain it. Mr. Fritz, have you read this contract?
I have.
How do you feel about us not being protected by cost changeovers? Is there any way we could have had it added into that, where we would have an arbitration process on that, sir?
I can't cite the section, but any major change has to be reviewed and agreed to by the parties. So we have that protection in place. If they want to have a price change that was unforeseen, the city manager would have to prove it. Attachment 5 indicates that any change of work procedure.
What page is that on, sir?
38 of 46. There was protections that allow us to have some control over modifications. Thank you very much, Dave.
I also see that we're responsible for a lot of hardware in this contract.
Yes, sir.
Is that normal?
Meters are.
It's legal, yeah.
I mean, the hardware around the meters and all that, aren't our people, or, go ahead.
Sir,
What was that, Mr. Lynch?
The legal question is, the contract is, I'm going to use the word standard contract, not like we take it or leave it, but as Mr. Savet mentioned, it is a state program. Instead of having everybody reinvent the wheel, this company does this type of work. They're the best company as determined by the state, and they are the lowest bids. We don't have to rebid these processes. The contract that came to me had no glaring problems that I would bring to council's attention as being a situation where we open ourselves up to significant liability. I will never sit here and say we can never be sued and the contract's perfect. I will just tell you that this is the best contract you're going to get. It seems to do everything it's supposed to, and we have the most of all of the, I can say all of the protections I normally want in a contract within this contract.
Is there, go ahead.
Statement. Miss Anna was kind enough, she's watching the meeting, and make a suggestion as well. It's funny because I mentioned this to my children this morning. We have there's some things going on in the world today, of course. One of the positive things, though, is that interest rates have dropped down to zero according to the Fed. So, which, when we go to finance this project, we, dropped 2 full percentage points?
Yes.
I believe, down to zero?
It's about the federal government is indicating somewhere between 0, I think, and 0.25 right now.
Mm-hmm. So money's cheap.
Yeah.
Mr. Boriak was on his second and final point. I wanted to make sure that you had it was wrapped
What
up.
I'd like to do, since we're talking about this, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and talk a little bit about it so we all know what we're talking. We're talking a humongous amount of money right now to spend in a very crisis situation. And at least we should know what's going on, and I don't think we are, but at least if I can get some type of answers. I have another one about the contract. I've had 2 addresses.
Okay, do we have a second?
Could I put a motion on the floor to suspend the rules?
Okay, you made are you making the motion then?
Yes, I'd like
Okay,
to make a motion.
Do we have a second? Okay. Going once, going twice. If there's no second, then the motion dies, I suppose.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is your point done, Mr. Bariak?
Yeah,
Okay.
the other point I wanted to
Okay.
ask, is
All
the
right. Well, the,
contract include, or is that a separate fee, the base agreement for the monthly, yearly, to $22,127 monthly amount, $1,844 for them to, the service agreement pricing and acceptance. Is that an additional charge, sir, or is that fixed in on the whole contract?
Yeah, I can answer that. That applies to year one, and the city can opt out. That is an informational software relationship with Gardner after this thing is implemented, and we are not locked into it after the first year, to answer your
We're not
question.
locked into anything, but I'm saying
Well, that's
we're
right.
voting on it tonight. It's an additional part that
Yeah, just
I
year
just
one.
found that, okay. I read
Just
through
year
it.
one.
All right, thank you.
okay, any other discussion? Mr. Lynch,
So
did
that
you have
adds another,
something?
what, another $22,127 for the first year at least, right? Until we want one off.
Just the first
Are we
year.
gonna train our own people, sir? How do we do this?
Mr. Chairman, I'm unclear as whether or not I have the floor or not.
Yeah, so that way you can
That's what I
answer
wanted.
or whatever we're.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, the reason we had the session here was so we could have a wide-ranging discussion. We spent an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, if you include all the discussion that took place amongst all of us after the meeting was adjourned the other night. And Mr. Havens was here for the purpose of responding to any other questions that you had. But what I did want to mention is that tonight's a first reading. If you listen to the dissertation of the law director tonight, the concept of a first reading is to put something on the floor and to foment discussion. And then use the intervening time between the first reading and the second reading to engage in further evaluation. By the time the second reading comes along, we will have had 3 meetings with reference to this legislation. I want you to contact Chuck Lane and Jeff and Bill George. Please talk to them directly. Also, the contract information you have has Mr. Havens' phone number on it. And many of the questions you've asked tonight are actually revealed in the 60-page study which I gave you. If you read that study in detail, you will see the answer to almost all your questions. Now, there was another issue that you raised, and you said, we don't break even until further on down the contract. That's actually not true. On page 36 of this contract, you will see that we are in positive cash flow in year 1. We are in positive cash flow position. Please let me finish. We are positive cash flow in year 1. Now, the last point as it relates to all of this, we have to replace our electric meters and have to replace our water meters. We have to do that. And at this point in time, because the interest rates are fallen to virtual European rates, Europe has been at 0% over the last couple of years. But the point is that because of the cost of money being so inexpensive at this time, those margins for positive cash flow are even larger, and more importantly, and this is what I said to me the other night, if you don't do it this year, there was I think it was a company that did oil changes, and it was a mechanic that would come on the commercial. He'd say, either pay me now or pay me later, meaning take care of the problem while you can efficiently and cost effectively do it, or wait until you are in a disastrous situation. All I'm trying to get at is not engaging in these solutions now is virtually, given the interest rates being so low, virtually municipal malpractice.
Oh, please. I did talk to Bill. Could I have the floor again, please?
I don't want to be rude. This is.
That's all right.
Council's
That's all right, I
rules.
understand.
Okay, well, I'm going to
Just
finish.
smoking
That,
first.
what's that?
I'd like to have another address. We
Well-
brought up some questions.
All right, well, you've had 2 addresses. This is the first vote. There's materials to look at. We're going to continue on, have other discussion. have the first vote, then look through the materials, and we still have discussion on it at the next meeting still. Is there any other discussion? If not, go ahead and vote on it. Roll call.
Bariak.
No.
Savet.
Yes.
Alberini.
Yes.
Waddell.
Yes.
Raymeyer.
Yes.
Okay, first reading passes. Next motion.
Motion to accept the Finance Department March monthly report, credit card report, bank reconciliation, attachments as presented.
So, second. Wow.
Okay, discussion?
Savet.
Yes.
Alberini.
Yes.
Waddell.
Yes.
Raymeyer.
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes.
Okay, passes. Public comments. Did you have somebody lined up on the phone, Mr. Lynch?
Yes, I do. There were three. Actually, there are four. Katie Carl, Julie Lemon, David Hanson, and Brian Kropp. So while I engage this, if you don't mind beginning with Mr. Kropp, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, Mr. Kropp, just a reminder, 3 minutes, and this is open to anything that you want to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that. Brian Kropp, 247 Elizabeth Street. I did want to mention that I am here. I'm representing a new group, a new organization, a new whatever you want to call it, that I started up to try and disseminate information. It's called Newton Falls X. So I want to be real quick about that. I don't want to hang on that too long. If anybody in town wants to check it out, get on Newton Falls X. There's a group on Facebook. We're really trying to disseminate information, share things, kind of long-form discussions, that kind of stuff, because it's really necessary. And transparency, I made some notes here. Pardon me if I keep looking at my phone. I just want to transparency is more than just talking about items on the agenda at a meeting. Transparency is about making information readily available, easily findable, and easy for people to locate, whether they're tech savvy, not tech savvy, whether they get a newspaper or watch television. And our council and our city, unfortunately, as much as you guys claim to, don't do any of that. The website, I've mentioned before, previous meetings, is awful. It's hard to find most things on the website. You can't find information easily, quickly, and I'm not blaming it. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault here. I don't think anybody here are webmasters or anything along those lines, but it's something that needs to be done. And with that being said, Mr. Alberti mentioned the new meters and things being at the end of their lifeline, and something along those lines is you don't put a fresh coat of paint on a car that has a rusted out frame, and that's exactly what we have here in the city, unfortunately. You're going to put new meters into a city where we have infrastructure problems. You guys are trying to buy a building because the building that you're in now is old because you guys didn't take care of it. I don't want to hear that a building is just old and you can't fix it or can't do anything to it. Most buildings are old. They get maintenance and maintained. That's what you do. You spend the money to keep your infrastructure in place. Like I said, the public has real trouble finding information and access to that kind of stuff. I wanted to talk about the presentation. I actually requested to make a presentation. Mr. Fritz addressed council earlier about the agenda items and what gets put on the agenda and when and how and all that other stuff. I'd like to point out that you guys aren't exactly easy to send things through. Things don't happen quickly because if let's say a lot of people make requests or there's a lot of things going on, you get a lot of back and forth. I've been back and forth. I made a request before the last meeting to have some documents and information sent to me, and I haven't received that stuff yet because I've gotten questions back based on the requests that I've made. So that's part of an issue. I've made many requests. I've actually made several requests for things having to do with economic development projects and anything having to do with expenditures, expenses, and things having to do with economic development, because we've been hearing about that now for years. I also have learned that Mr. Lynch appointed Mr. Waddell, our appointed councilman, as the economic development liaison. And now that's a new role, new title that never existed before Mr. Lynch came in. So Mr. Lynch has appointed Mr. Waddell. Mr. Waddell, to my knowledge, has a city-issued credit card. Is the only council member here that has a city-issued credit card. I've requested more records, as many records as I could possibly get, whether it be credit card expenses, that kind of stuff, anything associated with economic development, and I have yet to get the additional information that I've requested. I got a few credit card requests, receipts, but most of them didn't have to do with what I asked for. I asked for a list of economic development projects. I have not received that as well because that's what I was told I needed in order to get those expenses. The election is going on as planned. We just got an announcement through social media that the judge, I know my time's up, I'll finish it very quickly. The election is on tomorrow, so people please go out and vote. I know that the Secretary of State was going to make an announcement. They're waiting to talk to the judge. It's official. The vote is on tomorrow. So people please go out and vote, especially Ward 3. Vote for Ward 3. And one last thing, I want to point out that I think it's highly inappropriate for any member of council to wear corporate advertising, any kind of that kind of thing. I think it's highly inappropriate. I think that should be addressed by the mayor. I think this is the city of Newton Falls, and that's what this is about. Thank you, people. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great night. You can message me on Facebook, Terry. Have a good night, folks.
Next individual.
Hello?
Yeah, Ms. Carl, you're in the council meeting live on the record, and you have the floor with reference to concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the city for all of the work that it's doing in regards to keeping us safe, number one, and for looking after all of us, and for the efforts that the school put on for taking care of the students and whatnot. The efforts that council is doing and moving forward with transparency is really appreciated. However, I would greatly appreciate the continued efforts of the city with helping out the businesses. The festival, the Falls Wizarding Festival, was to help promote and get revenue in to the businesses in the different clubs and organizations. Now more than ever, with this closing of everything, we need to move forward with that. Now we can't have the meeting, but I would like council support with that to help everybody, all the clubs, organizations, and businesses in helping promote that. And we will doing it more online and via websites more than ever, too. We may have to move it from July 17th and 18th, but please help promote our community. Thank you very much. Bye.
Mr. Chairman, the next speaker is David Hanson. Yes,
Good evening, Newton Falls.
Yeah, you have the floor, Mr. Hanson.
I'd like to thank the mayor, school board, city manager, and council for their proactive policies with concern to this outbreak. This proactive measure of canceling the meetings protects our safety forces, our politicians, our civil servants, firemen, everybody, and I think it's very, very important that we stick to that. And you know, Mr. Crop or Clapp or whatever his name is, you know, he came in like a rodent and not through the wall, and we can't have that. If we're going to have rules, it's got to be rules for everybody.
Point of order. Hey, Dave, we don't have to talk down on him like you. Please.
You know, the most important thing is our safety forces in following instructions that they give to us. Not running around the fence or not jumping over the fence. This is wrong. You know, we're situated right here next to the National Guard and the 910th. We have some of the best social services that we could possibly ever get in the event of a pandemic, and we need to be vigilant. And the governor was on today, and he canceled everything. And the next guy that comes up there and busts through, he needs to get thrown in the clink. You need to have the sheriff come and haul him out of there. You know, I'm going by the rules. Katie Carl's going by the rules. Everybody needs to go by the rules. You know, and I'll finish up by saying that the economic development has been better now than it's ever been in the past 40 years. We missed the boat on the sewer lines, the water lines. It was nothing but a brouhaha up here. And now we got some stuff going, and I want to tell you, I'm putting my money on Lyle. I was in Washington, D.C. with them. I wore out a brand new pair of wool socks that day running, and so did Lyle. So I just want to finish up with telling you guys, keep moving ahead. If you're not moving ahead, it's like a boat with no cork in the back of it. When you slow down, the water's going to come in, and you're going to sink. Okay. All right, guys. Good night, good luck, and God bless us all.
The last speaker, Mr. Chairman, is Julie Lemon.
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Lemon, you are live on the record with the City Council for 3 minutes.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and everyone on the council. Julie Lemon, regarding the General Assembly Church of God on 2021 East River Road. We were planning on having an Easter program and inviting our new mayor and all of City Council to attend. At this point, it is canceled for Easter weekend, but we are looking to postpone it to a different date if at the very worst case. We're ready for next year, but I do want to thank everyone in the community for what they're doing and working together as a team. You know, there's no I in team. But, you know, we're just really excited about things that are going on with our church. It's been in the community for 46 years. We're right next door to Lyle. But when the time comes and we do plan to go ahead and do this production, we want to make sure that the whole council and the entire community is invited. There's no admission fee. It's just an outreach program and to kind of depict the last days of Christ and everything. So we just wanted to go ahead and extend the invitation, and when we come up with the new date, we'll let you guys know. So our prayer is that everyone stays safe, and God bless.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. No further requests for public participation.
All right, closing remarks. I'll start off. The only thing I have is something that through the years of parenting, a lot of times when my older sons would try to tell me something to pull the wool over my eyes that was clearly not true, I would tell them, don't try to tell me the grass is red, or as the saying goes, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. But And I bring this up just because I hear constantly all the time about all these emergency motions being done. All this underhanded stuff being done, and individuals pulling the wool in council, the city manager, and all this. And since I've been here, there's been one emergency motion. I don't know what happened 10 years ago. I don't know what happened 2 years ago. I wasn't a part of that. I apologize for that. But there's been one, and we've explained and explained and explained the purchase of the church, the reason for that. You know, I don't want to go and say I'm not going to tell you the grass is red here and telling you that all kinds of inappropriate things are going on, because that's not the case. And I think it's troubling that it's acceptable to think all of a sudden that any of these councilmen, councilwomen, the finance director, the law director, the city manager are doing anything underhanded. I mean, I can tell you that every single council person in here, sometimes we butt heads, but iron sharpens iron, and it's a good thing. We come out of here united, and we come out of here doing what's best for the community. We love Newton Falls, each individual, and I can tell you that there's nothing underhanded being done. I'm proud of the efforts, and I'm proud that, as I've got to know each individual working in here. But it's just, again, I say it, my point here of all my rambling is I think it's troubling to accept that is brought in here all the time, all these emergency motions. There isn't all these emergency motions. There was one in the year of 2020. One. And it's been explained why. There's not money going out the back door. There's not the credit card that was talked about that Mr. Waddell has used. I could use it if I had a reason. Mr. Alberini could use it. Mr. Bariak could use it. It's, if there was a reason, they're not going to let me go put gasoline in my van. There's checks and balances. And I'm just, putting it out there that I just really don't want any more it looking down to where things aren't being done appropriately, because that's far from the truth. Anybody else? Ms. Braymeyer.
I would like to address Mr. Crop coming in here this evening. You don't say you can't rob the gas station. And then somebody comes over, well, you can rob it, it's okay. And I just think if the rules are for everybody, we should not have permitted him to come in here tonight. It's for the safety of everybody in Newton Falls.
I understand what you're saying.
And it just was not right. Now, we'll have another meeting here in a couple weeks, probably be the same thing. But I do say, in my opinion only, people are, if they're not permitted in, they should not be permitted in. And if they give a hard time, that's what we have the chief for.
Yeah. I mean, he was brought in here, to be honest with you, is what we were told under media. It's the same thing as the gentleman in the back and things like that.
Yeah, right.
Mr.
Mayor, I'm going
Waddell.
to take a few minutes and...
Wait a minute, am I before you?
No, I raised my hand.
Oh, okay.
I asked for permission to
I
speak.
thought it went around the circle. Go
Well,
ahead.
it started here.
Go ahead.
Who's
No,
next?
you Go ahead.
Gosh,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize again for being interrupted, but I want to make a few comments. We have, there's 3 websites that kind of talk about Newton Falls, and they're somewhat toxic. They never started out that way, but they ended up that way. We now have a 4th very toxic website about Newton Falls, and that's not the way it started out, or it's not what it's claimed to be. And this website, if you disagree with the guy running the website or his wife, they just beat the daylights out of you. I mean, they've just chastised people, which brings me back to somebody like the previous mayor. If you didn't agree with him, he beat you up. And if it's going to be an open and honest website, you've got to be able to disagree. And it's not. It's extremely toxic to our community. And people look at these sites, and they look at this community, and if there's any problems with people seeing negative stuff in this community, it's not me. I'm not the embarrassment. We aren't the embarrassment of Northeastern Ohio. It's the websites and the toxicity that exists out there. When you asked, people have asked, the previous mayor, what'd you do in your office? And he really doesn't have much to say, but he listed 50 items that happened or businesses that came into town while he was in office. I think he talked about the water running through the river and the sun and the moon rising too. I think he took credit for that. But I don't take credit for Taco Bell. I don't take credit for Domino's. I don't take credit for the train station opening up down there or that. I take credit for the annexation that took 2.5 years to develop, that was an asset to this community. I take credit for the network that we have created, the extensive network that's been created so that we can move forward and we have contacts that we never had before. It's kind of interesting, when we keep talking about this credit card, this credit card, this credit card. All they try to do is discredit people. I said before, nothing's purchased on the credit card unless it has approval from the city manager prior to doing that. And the only reason the credit card came about is because when you go to some of these functions, whether it's the OML function that we're all invited to go to or wherever it is, and you go down there and you want to, Ms. Kagan is so gracious to make reservations to these functions, And when you go down there, if you don't have the credit card she made it on, it becomes a real problem. You either pay for it yourself, which I have no problem with doing, being reimbursed, or you have to call the finance director, get a form, send the form down, they have to okay the form, they have to send the form back, and it just became a problem. And so it was talked about, putting out a credit card that we could do these things with. It's tracked. Again, nothing has ever been put on that credit card that wasn't a meeting. There's been no meals, no gas, nothing, and it's all been pre-approved to do that, and that's the way it's going to be, and it's the way it's going to continue. Economic development in this community has just been an absolute no-show for many, 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 many years. And when I took over as mayor, the first 3 or 3.5 years was nothing but leftover fighting and hassling, and nothing happened. The meetings were, they just did things that it wasn't positive for the community. Once we got past all that, we got some new people on council, things started to move. But what it takes is you have to actually reinvent the wheel, because we had nothing that existed here. You have to start going to meetings that I've taken you to, meetings that we go to where we have great relationships now. We didn't have those. I started going to all these meetings, and it's taken 2 or 3 years to get that started. Then comes the economic development part, and it's something that 99% of the people don't understand. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Mr. Alberti and I sat down, and we sent 87 letters out to different businesses. Boy, what a waste of time that was. We didn't get a response out of it. But we didn't know that's what you weren't supposed to do, because we didn't know. We had never done any of that. I started taking these classes. You learn how to do things. You learn how to proceed, how to work with site selectors, how to work with real estate people, how to work with financing people, how to work with your own people. And it is amazing what I have learned and the knowledge that I've gathered on how to do economic development. What people don't understand is you can sit here and talk about economic development for quite a while. And it takes a long time to get us back on track. And we are on a good track right now. They talk about the Pomaida building. I want the Pomaida building filled. They want the Pomaida building filled. We want the Pomaida building filled. But you can't snap your finger and somebody comes to the Pomaida building. We have entertained 2 businesses to come to the Pomaida building, and we've been working on that for almost a year. And it hasn't happened yet. It's not because we're not, we got an offer out there that's just beside, it's amazing. And when you listen to these other communities, when I go to these classes and I go to these seminars and I go to these meetings, every community is doing the same thing that we're doing, except they've been doing it for a long period of time, and it's a little bit easier. Bigger cities, it's even easier because they have a bigger funding process. They have a bigger funding revenue that they can do certain things with. Yes, we can't come out here and we can't point and say economic development has done this, this, and this. But there's a starting place. We've purchased land. We've brought land into the community to develop and to have offerings and to be able to supply utilities and give them discounted rates where it's going to help us bring in kilowatt hour tax and income tax. And we have done a lot. There's a lot that you just can't obviously talk about when you're working with people, when you have an NDA going on. There's just things you can't talk about. But the process and the things that we have laid out right now are going so well that if we bring somebody else in here, not that I'm the best at anything else, because anything can happen, but I'll tell you, you're going to go backwards about 10 years if things change quite drastically. Because you need somebody that has clout, you need somebody who's able to communicate around the county, and we have that. We have a great system through the state of Ohio right now that I still want to be part of, because it's bringing us notoriety. It's bringing, people know who we are when you go to meetings now. When I first started going to meetings, they knew who Newton Falls was, so they didn't want to talk to us. And as you have seen, we have very good relationships around this county, and I want to still be part of that because I'm proud of this community, and I am absolutely proud of everything that I've done. Do I rub people the wrong way sometimes? Sure. Hey, I'm not the perfect guy, but I believe in what I want to do, and I will go for it, and I will do that. One of the things that really, really was interesting to me, and I'll say this and I'll be done with it, was when the county turned down our first annexation request. And I don't agree with the fact they turned it down, because they took a decision that was being made through the state Supreme Court that really just didn't apply. And they twisted it around and they erred on the side of caution, maybe, I don't know. But the big thing was we had to get signatures from the State of Ohio, the Turnpike Commission, and CSX. And others said, oh, good, we got them because they'll never get those signatures. I got home about 2:30 that afternoon, and I was on the phone to Jacksonville, Florida at 3 o'clock. And if it had to been for the fact that CSX released 1,000 managers while I was doing that, it wouldn't have taken me 6 weeks to get it done. But the attorney that was representing us told me here recently, we were kind of talking about a couple of things, and she says, I never told you this. She said, but when you were sitting there talking at the table after we were done, and you said, give me 6 weeks, I'll have this done, she says, we all agreed to that. And I said, well, that's what I meant. And she says, I was thinking in my mind, I was laughing, I've dealt with the railroads before, and I was hoping you'd get it done in the next 2 years because they're very hard to work with. And she said, when you sent that back to me in 6 weeks, she goes, I didn't know what to say. And I said, that's because I have my own drive. I set out to goals. I have goals. I've had a goal since the day I started 10 years ago. And that was to annex that property, bring that property in and start developing that property and bring jobs and businesses to this community to help our schools and to keep our young people here and do projects. And I'm very proud of that. And I don't care what Mr. Kropp or anybody else has to say. I'm extremely proud of that, and I'll keep doing the same thing that I'm doing right now. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bariak?
Yeah, I'd like to say just a couple of things in mind real quick. Absentee ballots are available online. They'll send you a ballot. You can still vote if you don't want to wait till, I think the date's June 2nd. You know, tonight I heard a lot, and I didn't hear a lot. You know, if I buy a $170,000 truck, which I have bought 2, 3, 4 of them, and the first year out, I make a profit on about $25,000. I really don't consider that a profit until I pay the truck off. Now, with the figures that I was given the other night on this quick slideshow here that we had, it said at $458,000 anticipated revenue, and then it said we were going to pay $256,000. So that's about $200,000. So at $4.1 million, that'll take 20 years if things don't go up, and you know, and that. And this life cycle on the meters, we get the meters right now. We can buy meters for, I think Bill George told me, I don't know, I don't want to quote it, but by the time we buy 5,400 meters, and we pay the 3 people wages who are going to bring wages back into our community and maybe have a chance, now that we went through this, to give them 30 hours a week, which is 120 hours a month, but more than that, they use our trucks, and they're given a chance to work themselves in a full-time job, which we're going to have some employees retiring. When you put those numbers together, it just doesn't add up. There's still a lot of fat on that hog that I don't know where it's at. I may be wrong, but tonight it's shameful what this council did without all the facts in, with our finance director and that weighing in, and everybody letting the people know. It's not, look, all I want to know is that people know all the facts. Now, the other thing, Mr. Hanson, I appreciate Mr. Hanson for economic development. He's got a lot of his property that he wants to get developed. As a matter of fact, we're looking at CSX at a railroad spur now for, I hope we do, I hope we get some. What I'm trying to say is this. 10 years now we've had economic development, and I know it takes time. I asked a question, I'd like to know, because Mr. Waddell said it in the paper. We made $100,000, and I didn't get it out of he's most proud of annexation and making $100,000. Now, I couldn't get an answer. We've only got 3 motels in. Venture's not really in yet. How do you if it's utilities, let me know. All I want to know is, how did we make $100,000? We don't even have the bed tax. How did we make $100,000 on 440 acres when we don't even have all that in here yet? These are questions that need to be answered. I'm not trying to I just don't want to be sold a bill of goods. I want the people to know, hey, and if somebody isn't all factual, let's get it out there and let's know what's factual. I'm not accusing anybody of being a liar, I just want to know the facts. Put the cards on the table, they'll read themselves. You ever hear that?
Point of order, the cards have been on the table before, and that's been explained multiple times, if he would just pay attention and listen.
Well, wait a minute now, point of order what?
Don't call me a liar, John.
I didn't call you a liar.
Because those numbers have been on the table,
John. Please, Lyle, I have the floor.
Those numbers have been on the table.
Yeah,
stop.
again this meeting,
Hey.
you'll get another 50 the next meeting, on and on and on and on and on and on. And you let me have my time, then you can say what you want. Don't be upset, Lyle. You know what they say?
Don't call me a liar,
truth
John.
hurts.
Let's knock it off.
All right, sorry. Okay, let's go on. Tonight, I withdrew the motions because I didn't feel, another reason was I didn't feel that I'd get the support that I needed to pass them. But the real reason is that, we could let them go for another time. But I'm always to the point is, this is serve us, not serve us. And I hate to be a thorn in anybody's side. If it has to be a little bit extra on the people, we went and talked about that a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, whenever. I tried to accommodate the law director. I tried to accommodate Mrs. King. But I can't get stuff at 3 o'clock on Friday and expect to start making phone calls and call people. And I have a job yet, just like you, Mr. Klein. This isn't a full-time position. My time is limited, but I don't want to make a vote, come in and make a vote, and then somebody say, what did you vote on? You did this to us? At least I want to say, hey, I did the best I could, just like I did on the Congregational Church. Now, I hate to offend anybody here, and I didn't mean to tonight. But I didn't get the answers I wanted tonight, and this was yes, 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 yes. I think we should have waited, but that's the decision of council. The public will weigh for itself on that, weigh in on that, So I appreciate everything tonight. Thank you.
The only thing I have, just to comment back on that a little bit, is the way I'm looking at this is the part about the sponsoring the legislation that you had brought up is, we just need somebody to make a motion to put it back on the floor and we go into discussion. The way I see it is, I agree with you. I'd like to put stuff out there to where people have as much time to look at it as possible, but I also really would like to hear how the logistics take place behind the scenes with Mrs. King and Mr. Fritz, and if they have issue with it, where, hey, you could say, well, here's your problem, here's their problem, where do you meet in the middle to where we can do something? You know what I'm saying? Where everybody is pleased, and that's how you resolve conflict. That we talk a little bit on it. And when it comes to the meters, the same thing. Tonight was just the first reading, so there's still a lot more discussion in whatever packet it is that Mr. Lynch talked about. That's material. That's something that's got information there, but we still got another reading and more discussion to do on that. I don't want anybody, yourself or any of the other council people, to feel like they were cut off tonight or not answered. I want to make sure that before it's all said and done that we are all united when we walk out here, that because we did a good job for our community. Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Klein, did you want me to explain the $100,000 you want Terry to explain?
Probably Terry, if he wants to do it on his closing remarks.
Yeah, I'll try to. You want to go, Zach?
I don't have any comments.
You sure?
Let's expedite.
Thank you, citizens of Newton Falls. This has been an exciting meeting tonight, and I appreciate all the council cooperation and things like that and stuff. As Mr. Waddell's told you, we have spent a considerable amount of time on economic development. I mean, a lot, more than you know. And what Mr. Waddell doesn't tell you is that the amount of money that me and him have personally invested into bringing the Mayor's River Corridor group here, the lattes on legislation, we've had here, I believe, 3 times. that costs money. And as Ms. Anna will tell you, none of those expenditures were ever submitted to the city of Newton Falls for the citizens or the taxpayers to pay those. We paid those ourselves. And let me tell you what, we would do it again and again and again. And it's thousands of dollars. But we were willing to make that investment in our community for the citizens of Newton Falls. And so Lyle has spoken about, we do have a network set up in the business community where we have never had a network set up before. Now, I'll preface that by saying, again, as most folks know, I'm not from Newton Falls. But I can tell you this, I had a lot of friends here from Newton Falls back in the days when I worked at Copperwell Steel. 1976, someone correct me if I'm wrong, Rockwell shut down. A number of those employees came over to Copperwell, and I got to know those employees. It's not to go back and criticize those folks back in 1976 or 1980 or 85 about economic development. What I found out, and Lyle will tell you the same thing, just what we did. We had to learn on the fly. They did not know what to do. They did not know how to respond to an economic situation, such as we're seeing right now, and take that economic situation head on and come up with a strategy or a game plan to develop business in the community. So basically, as Lyle said, we started from ground zero. We started from ground zero. We now have relationships with, very close relationships with, the Youngstown Warren Chamber of Commerce, Guy Coviello. We're on a first-name basis with him. And I'm not name-dropping. The Cafaro Corporation has deep interest in Newton Falls on Route 5. Dave Hansen, a key player, obviously. David DeCristofaro, obviously a key player. So we formed these allegiances. Also, through the Camp Ravenna, Camp Garfield, we formed a strong allegiance with Portage County. I think Portage County's economic development model is one of the best. I told Sabrina Christian Bennett, the commissioner out there, it is one, and it's one that I would like to follow because it is dynamic, and Portage County is growing, and we'd like to take a page out of their playbook to do so. Now, as far as the $100,000, there's going to be about $15,000 in kilowatt tax generated, $85,000 in potential income tax generated that we can't speak on where it comes from. At some point in time, we will be, hopefully, later on down the road, we'll be able to discuss that further. But also, I want to address one thing, too. Mr. Kropp comes up here, and I respect his right to vote. I did not know that I was dressed inappropriately, according to Mr. Kropp, and I feel bad that Mr. Kropp, if you're watching TV, Brian, I feel bad that you think that way. One of the rules of marketing is definitely to promote yourself, okay? And I think your time would be better served if you would promote your business instead of posting inappropriate things on the Newton Falls what's it called? X website or something like that. I think you should do that. I'm giving you some business advice here. It's called 3M, marketing, marketing, marketing. There's nothing wrong with promoting yourself. And I don't do that when I come to Newton Falls City Council. I wear what I come in. I wear what I have on when I come in from work. Mr. Baryak wears his Baryak Tree Service. I think he should. That's his company. He's promoting his business. Zach wears stuff from Trumbull County. I think he should. The chief of police here has on a uniform. How about that? And he's promoting the Newton Falls Police Department. But I did check with Councilor Joe Fritz over here to ask him, am I violating council rules? Because you know something? What you said to me, I took seriously. Now, not everybody can look as good as you can, or as handsome as you are, or as well-built as you are. I'm 60 years old, brother. But I did check to see if I was doing something wrong. I was told when someone says that to me on council floor, that's a violation of your civil rights. I would never tell Mr. Baryak here, my friend, we don't agree. I would never tell Mr. Baryak, you can't wear your Baryak Tree Service here. I don't wear it. Should, huh?
I don't wear it.
But you have, though. You have. Come on, you have. I'm talking. Please. You have. But anyway, on top of that, I think that these Facebook sites, when I read what's it called, Newton Falls X Facebook, the most exciting thing in town, man. It's going to solve all your problems. You got monetary problems, see Newton Falls X. You got spiritual problems, see Newton Falls X. Financial problems, it's going to be the greatest thing in town. You know, I hate to say this, but my faith is not in the internet. It's not in these websites. It's not in this fluff and this fake news and this false narrative we've seen. My faith is in God. I am not perfect. None of these people here are perfect. But you know something? I like the psalm that Pastor Klein read. What psalm number was that? 91? 91. That was a beautiful song. We're going through trying times here in our country, and what we're worried about is that frivolous things that basically in the big scheme of life do not mean a thing when it comes down to human life and people's lives that are on the line during this crisis. And I want to say one more thing. If there's people who need help here in Newton Falls, need food, water, whatever, please call any one of us during this time of need, and we all will be glad to help you out. Thank you.
Do you have anything, Mr. Savet?
No,
Okay, Mr. Lynch?
Nothing to report further, Mr. Chairman.
Yourself, Mr. Fritz?
I have nothing, sir.
Very good. All right. Make a motion to recess into executive session for the
Mr.
purpose
Chairman,
of...
I'm going to intervene if I might for a moment. There were some elements with reference to security in Newton Falls that I was concerned we'd have to use executive session for, but I believe that we covered those during that special suspension rules at the beginning of the meeting, so it is no longer necessary to adjourn into executive session.
All right, so if somebody wants to make a motion to adjourn the meeting, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Alberini?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Raymeyer?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
yes.